Alright, so our final forgotten N64 game from Rare is probably the most surprising one. I mean, you've got a popular genre, you've got a studio that you know could do the genre justice, since Diddy Kong Racing's pretty great and came out a few years before this game, and you've got one of the most popular characters and series in the entire world. I mean, maybe there was a little genre fatigue or maybe a little distrust after a couple licensed game stinkers, but honestly, the biggest issue for this game is, for whatever reason, it's just kind of an inferior version of Diddy Kong Racing. I mean, it plays fine, but one of the big selling points of Diddy Kong Racing that isn't here, whether or not it's because Disney was stingy or didn't give them a lot of time or what, it was the different vehicles. You had the water vehicle and the planes, and you had the sort of open area adventure mode. Here you're kind of, just back to basics like Mario Kart 64, but at that point, why not play Mario Kart 64 if you wanted that? Speaking of Mario Kart, though, this game did do one thing before Mario Kart. The whole theme, you can probably tell from the title, is sort of what Mario Kart Tour would later become, being a focus on real-world locations. Definitely not the first. I can think of Cruisin' USA off the top of my head that, did a similar thing, but still a decent idea you can have some fun with. I feel like the N64, though, does maybe hold back the full potential of this sort of thing. I almost wonder what it would look like nowadays or a generation or two later when you could have, landmarks pretty unmissable. Like, I'm not saying it's not there, but if I'm in a kart racer going through New York City, I should see the Statue of Liberty, Some of the themes I thought were, I don't know if questionable was the right word. I mean, overall, they're fine, and it may help certain locations stand out, but I just don't know where the whole Chicago sewers or Philadelphia shipport really came from. No offense to Colorado either, but I feel like that was a interesting choice for a finale. Granted, I kind of see what they were going for. I mean, this game's final course, their Rainbow Road, is honestly one of the toughest. But I feel like they could have, switched around the theme and kept the layout with something more people, especially outside of the US, would be familiar with, like the Rocky Mountains or the Grand Canyon or something like that. I'm not gonna lie though, I went into this game expecting a cakewalk. I mean, a kart racer probably targeted towards, a younger audience. But honestly, it was pretty difficult for what it was. Hell, I feel like part of that may have been for them to incentivize you to play through every difficulty, because you unlock Huey, Dewey, Louie, one of them through the GBA transfer pack, and the others from clearing all the cups on easy or medium. And they, I think, are the best characters in the game that make the challenge of higher difficulties a little more doable. And I don't know how I feel about that whole thing. I mean, you could still make it through the other difficulties, particularly with some skillful blocking. But I don't know, it just feels a little more like they're, forcing you to do it, I guess, which doesn't sit right with me. Overall, the different characters do feel unique. I mean, after the Ducklings, I feel like Daisy and Minnie are the next best, and then Mickey and Donald are kind of in the middle, and Goofy and Pete are kind of rough. That's my tier list with the different stat types that you have, although the ducklings are all different. I think they overall have more stat points than anyone too. And I think it goes up, like you might have like one extra stat point with the one you get from the GBA, and then another one from completing on easy, and then another from completing on hard. You can also unlock Ludwig, and he is the most difficult character to unlock, but I also feel like he's the worst character in the game. Granted, maybe if you really master things and can deal with the heavy weight and not losing speed, you can kind of, get a good thing going there, but I definitely didn't have the patience for that. And to me, it almost felt like one of those things where it was almost too little too late. Like at that point, you're pretty much done with the game when you get them. Unless you went through hard without the unlockable characters, I guess. But yeah, I do like some of the banter that they have going on between the characters, or I guess at least the idea of it. I mean, given it's Mickey Mouse, they're almost apologizing for hitting you with items and stuff, which is, I don't know, I guess once again it is, the Mickey Mouse IP, but I feel like some more playful or competitive banter would have been more interesting and fitting for a kart racer, but not surprising though either. I do in general like the idea that they had to unlock the final cup in being you have to find hidden parts on, it's pretty much one per cup on one of the courses. The only thing is, now it's easy because you got online guides and that, but back then, unless you were really into the game, I can imagine being really frustrated having to pick through every corner of every track trying to find the piece, or having to do it again if you missed one of the pieces and not knowing exactly where it was. I feel like if you were to ever do a re-release, which I don't think would ever happen with this, with all the license holders that you have involved, but people said the same thing about GoldenEye, but I feel like there's definitely a lot more demand for GoldenEye. But I don't know, I feel like maybe an option or some sort of item that can maybe give you a hint, maybe it could sort of beep when you're close to the item, or you're at least on the same track of the item. But yeah, overall, even though, like I said in the beginning, this one probably had the most potential out of all of these three games we've talked about, I can definitely see more on why this one specifically has been kind of forgotten. I know there's a Game Boy Color version, I think, too, but I would think this was the main version to talk about or look back on. And I don't know, if you really like kart racers or in the mood for a new one, or you really like Mickey Mouse or the United States, then I would say it's probably worth a playthrough, but I don't really know nowadays if it's worth much more than that, even with all that being said.